Hey, welcome back to the Big Ranch Show. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me for this segment of In the News. Now, this week in the news, we've had a lot of stuff go on, a lot of BS, a lot of good stuff, some bad stuff, mostly bad, of course. But let's start off with what's going on in Germany right now. There's been massive flooding in Western Europe, especially in Germany. Recently, today, they had a dam break by a city, and now they have even more massive flooding. So please keep the people of Germany in your thoughts as they deal with this tragic event of flooding. As you know, with the climate the way it is, we will continue to see more and more events like this. In fact, it is reported that because of climate change, as well as a natural wobble in the moon coming up in the next 10 years, around the mid 2030s, you will see massive flooding along coastal regions. And the events could last upwards of a month or more of inland flooding in coastal cities. You're talking Miami, you're talking about Venice over in Italy, and all sorts of other places around the globe. But unfortunately, we're getting to a point where it's a bit too late to do anything about it. At least that particular problem. We could do a lot to save the Earth, to help the Earth, and actually prevent a catastrophic event. The problem is humans don't care. At least most humans don't care. Those people watching this video, and myself, we may care. And people like Bill Nye may care. But unfortunately, most people, especially most Americans, do not care. It's also been reported that there are massive areas of the rainforest that are no longer producing oxygen. They are producing carbon dioxide because they are burning. And this is massive areas of rainforest. And the rainforest is where we get the majority of our oxygen. So what happens when the rainforest dies, when we cut them all down, where there are no more rainforest left? The event you see going on in Europe right now, in Germany, it'd be a drop in the bucket compared to what you're going to see when we eradicate the entire rainforest the way we're going. Also in the news, it is believed by the MyPillow guy that Donald Trump will be reappointed as president on August 13th. Now we all know that the MyPillow guy, Mike Lindell, is completely insane. This is obvious. We don't need any any kind of diagnosis there. It is clear that he is mentally unstable. There's something clearly wrong with the guy. But somehow he's able to run a multi-million-dollar company. But whatever he's doing, he's completely lost his mind, especially when it comes to the Trump situation. He's been saying since Trump lost the election that Trump won the election. He's actually been even sent off of Newsmax, shut down on Newsmax for lies, because Newsmax is getting sued by the people that make some of the voting machines. But Mike Lindell swears that Donald Trump will be reappointed or reinstalled as president on August 13th. Interesting. That's also National Kool-Aid Day. Also in the news, Texas has a new problem. It doesn't look like it's going to be a major problem, but apparently a person has flown from Nigeria to Atlanta to Dallas, and they have monkeypox. It's apparently a real thing. I thought when I saw it on Facebook that, they had to be joking. But no. It is in the family of smallpox, but it's not nearly as deadly. It's also not nearly as transmissible. They believe that he would not have been able to have transmitted any of this to anybody on the plane he was on, because they are required on the airline he was on to wear masks. It's amazing how wearing masks could actually prevent the spread of many communicable diseases. It could literally save lives every year during the fall and winter, during the cold and flu season, especially with the flu. You could save millions of lives, over the course of, say a decade by preventing people from getting the flu. But who knows, right? But apparently and he's in Dallas at a hospital. He is being monitored and treated, and apparently he's doing fine. He's in stable condition. Like I said, the virus is not nearly as deadly as, say, smallpox, or from the looks of it, a lot of other major diseases like Ebola that you get out of Western Africa sometimes. And so it's not a dire situation. It's not something that's probably going to spread wide, far and wide, but it does come with fever and other problems like that. So it's not likely a problem for anybody else except for this one person, since everybody else on the planes were wearing masks. Now, if you were on that plane and you weren't wearing a mask because you're stupid, you might want to go get checked out. But the CDC says they are already checking up on all the other passengers on the plane to make sure nobody else may have contracted it, whether they're a worker or a passenger. Also, apparently, in the news, Richard Sherman I guess was with the 49ers last I heard. He used to be a Seattle Seahawk. He was in Seattle with his wife and got drunk. Apparently, at some point in the middle of the morning, about almost 2 in the morning, he drove his car into a closed construction site and ended up wrecking his car into some of the construction work that had been done. And instead of owning it and calling the police saying, hey, this happened, of course he wasn't going to do that because he's drunk. He drove and left the scene. So of course that's probably a felony there in the state of Washington, like it is in most places, leaving the scene of an accident. But that's not the worst of it, if you ask me. The worst of it is the fact that he was being belligerent and threatening not only to kill himself but to harm others. He kept trying to start fights with his wife's, uncles, and then ended up trying to break into his wife's parents' house. All the while threatening to commit suicide through text messages to other friends and people, and even telling his wife that he was going to hang himself. Now, I understand this guy may have a mental health problem, but I find it interesting how many people have problems with alcohol in this country, whether they have mental issues or not. It's really sad, though, that somebody that has everything that you could possibly want in life felt the need to get drunk and get violent. Now, I'm not trying to take anything away from the possibility that he's mentally unstable or he has mental health issues that he needs to deal with. We all know that mental health is a terrible, terrible problem sometimes for people. There's all sorts of elements out there that can cause people to do crazy things and to harm themselves or others. The worst part, though, is the way that his wife was treated on the telephone by the dispatcher. The dispatcher acted as if it wasn't a big deal, kept asking if Sherman had a gun or a weapon. And his wife repeatedly said, no, there's not a weapon. But the woman on the dispatcher kept asking again and again, is there a weapon? And his wife was trying to make very clear that this is just a mental episode of some sort. Do not shoot him, basically. Because as happens a lot of times, you call the police for somebody that's having a mental breakdown or something, and instead of solving the problem or helping them get the help, they just go in gun blazing. And she didn't want this to happen. But the dispatcher didn't seem to care. So we need to do a lot for the mental health situation in this country. We ignore it. We act like it's not a problem. We act like people that are rich can't have mental problems. But the fact is, many do. You're seeing more and more that this is a problem. You're seeing people that have, you know, professional sports stars that have CTE that mess up their brain, right? Makes them unable to do the things they need to do, and makes them can cause paranoia and all sorts of other problems. And I'm not saying that that's what Richard Sherman's dealing with, but you see it in professional sports. Luckily, it was solved. He was arrested after he tried to walk away from the police. He ended up being arrested and charged. But it was solved peacefully. Thankfully, his wife made it adamantly clear that he didn't have a gun, even though the dispatcher kept trying to push like maybe he had a gun. But Richard Sherman does say that he is remorseful for his actions that led to his arrest. Of course, that's what somebody that did something that broke the law is going to say. But all I can say is for he and his family, you know, especially his wife, I hope everything works out. They're able to get everything figured out with what happened. You know, because people don't drink that much just to drink usually, especially, you know, the way she was talking it wasn't normal. The way his wife was talking to the dispatcher. But he had two full bottles of hard liquor, and this is what happened. The question is, what led to that? Why was he drinking that much on that particular day? And lastly, in the news, something that broke today, a federal judge in Texas has tried to block the DACA program, you know, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, which is, you know, for those people that were brought here against their will as children and crossed the border illegally with their adult parents. They've decided now that it's been deemed illegal by this one federal judge. I guarantee you this will be going to the Supreme Court. Unfortunately, look at the Supreme Court. In which direction do you think they're going to vote? Last summer, when Ginsburg was still on it, they ruled in favor in a 5-4 decision in favor of DACA staying, including Justice John Roberts. But now you've got two wild cards on the conservative side with Kavanaugh and Barrett. So what's going to happen? Congress is going to have to do their job. The DACA program, as I have discussed in several other videos, is not a bad program. There are a lot of requirements. You've got a lot of people that lie to you about what DACA is or what's in it. But the fact is, to be on the program, you have to be going to school or you have to be working. One, you have to be working because you need to be able to pay the fees. The fees aren't cheap. I think it's every year, every 2 years, you have to renew. Well, people aren't going to be able to renew anymore. These people are now just going to lose their ability to work. They're going to lose their ability to be here in the U.S. The only home they've ever known, many of them not knowing until they go to apply for college or for a job that they're not legal. You can't be convicted of certain misdemeanors or felonies, or any felonies, and certain misdemeanors apply as well. Depending on your situation and what you might get in trouble for, as much as a bounced check can send you packing. But people don't want you to know that. They want you to think it's just bad people. But that's not how the program works. Go check some of my other videos out, and where they break down exactly what's in the DACA program. They're there. The information is there. The information hasn't changed. The law hasn't changed. I don't understand why people have to be so bigoted to brown people. I don't understand why they have to do it to people at all. Why do they have to be assholes to people that don't have any other choice? You're 2 years old. Think about it. You're 2 years old. And your mom brings you from, say, Columbia. Walked all that way or drove all that way, however they got there. At 2 years old, do you get to tell your parents where you're living? Where they're moving to? Do you get to tell them how to live their lives and where, what laws they are or aren't going to break? No. At 2 or 3 years old, you don't get to tell your parents that. These people brought their kids here for a better life. And many of these children had no clue. In fact, I know people that are on the DACA program that have told me how expensive it is and how hard it is to maintain. And how you have to stay on the straight and narrow. You don't get to deviate from the straight and narrow and get to stay on the program. And by being removed from the program, you open yourself up to deportation. Also, the fact is, the Hispanic workers that come in on this program work harder than most white Americans. It's sad, but it's true. When's the last time you heard a white person say, "Oh, by the way, I lost my fruit picking job because of the immigrants"? You don't, because people don't do those jobs in this country. Most people in this country see that as below them, even if they're unemployed. I've personally watched groups of lawn crews work for the apartment complexes that I've been in. And it's pathetic to watch. You'll have a group, say 3 or 4, 5 Hispanic folks, 1 white person. And the white guy is sitting on his butt checking his cell phone the whole time. The fact is, Hispanic people tend to have a better work ethic than a lot of people already here. So if there's some people that want to be here that aren't documented, that aren't legal as you call them, fine. Let that be. Somebody has to do the work that they're going to do. And most Americans aren't going to do it. So stop hating on the other. Just because they're different than you or they come from somewhere else doesn't make them any less of a human or any less needing of dignity. There is no reason to hate on these people. And yes, sure, you can call them illegal if you want. They crossed an arbitrary border. But you know what? They're still people. And all this program does is it just proves that our government makes our government look like another lie laid by our government. We did it to the Native Americans. We've done it over and over again, breaking some 400 treaties with them. And now we're breaking basically a treaty with these people. Now these people, for being on the program, are now in the open. They can now easily be deported. Now the fact is, this isn't going to happen immediately. There's going to be lawsuits trying to block it, trying to get it to the Supreme Court, at which point the Supreme Court will probably then officially block DACA. So this is the deal. What we need to have happen is we need to pressure Congress to get the job done. And I've not been one to support getting rid of the filibuster. But we may need it. Unfortunately, we don't know how exactly this will play out. I'm fairly certain when it gets to the Supreme Court, though, the Supreme Court will rule in the favor of the people trying to get rid of it. because the Supreme Court is controlled by conservatives. And conservatives tend to want to destroy DACA. I don't understand why. There's all these lies about it, and I don't understand it. But beyond the workers and the immigrants coming in to the country, and these kids being brought here against their will, let's talk about the educational expenses that we have already paid. For example, in Texas, Republican Texas, it is required that students are in school and that people that are brought here, even illegally, are required to go to school. So we are required to pay for them to go to school. So we educate them, right? Many of these people stayed here for college, on the DACA program. They applied for the DACA program so they could go to college and educate themselves. They've served our military, many of them. But think about the money we're spending on education. We spent all this money educating these children through, K through 12, funded through, whatever state mechanism you have for funding, federal funds that come in for that, for education. Billions and billions of dollars a year spent on education. Many of that for people who are either on the DACA program or here without knowing they're illegal. Billions spent through a lifetime of them going to school. Didn't say they get Pell Grant or guaranteed student loans or other grants from the government for college. That's more money. More millions of dollars right there going out to people across the country. Think about it. Do we really want to send people we've already paid for their education off to another country? Shouldn't you want to keep them here? It's not that these people are doing anything wrong, because if they were, they would be kicked out. They'd be kicked off the program and deported. But that's not what's happening. They're not breaking the laws in general. Last I heard, there were maybe 2 or 3 cases where somebody on DACA had broke the law. And guess what? They were immediately removed from the program and deported. Except for one who was on trial. Now I don't know what the end of that was. So what are your thoughts on DACA or any of the news stories that I've brought to you today? Let me know down below. This has been the Big Ranch Show. Thank you for watching In the News, and I'll see you down the road.